Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to another week here at Liam's Fight Night Picks. I'm delighted to say that my guest this week is Jack from Absolute Boxing. How are we doing, mate?
Brilliant, honestly. Can't wait.
Yeah, good to have you on, mate. We had a bit of a false dawn a few weeks ago, but we finally got around to it, so looking forward to ripping into this week.
Finally got here.
Yeah, for the fights, we're bouncing around this week, so we're, of course, going to touch on the Copper Box cards, which is headlined by Azim and Ohara Davies. We're going to take a trip to Germany for the vacant IBF super middleweight title between William Scull and Vladimir Shishkin, and then we're going to head off to Florida, where we'll look at Bakhram Murtazaliev against Tszyu for the IBF super welterweight world title. So let's get straight into it. We're going to start with Michael McKinson. So he is fighting at the Copper Box against Tulani and Mbenge for the IBO welterweight title. So a fringe world title. First question with Michael McKinson. It's only his second 12-rounder of his career. Obviously, when he stepped up previously, he was stopped quite emphatically by Azeez Jr. Do we know truly what level Michael McKinson's at? Is he beyond British level? Is he kind of British and Commonwealth at best? What do you think?
I think this could be a decent enough stepping stone for him now. Like I haven't seen a lot of his fights, but the ones I have seen, like he seems to put up a good performance. But the level he's been fighting at, it is hard to tell. Like his last fight against Lawson, like he was only 11-0, so can't really tell much from it.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. It's difficult to tell with McKinson. He's 26-1. Only 4 knockouts in his record, so that indicates he's a fighter that wears you down and looks to beat you on points as opposed to finishing the show with one punch, which there's nothing wrong with. But there is a saying in boxing that if you can't get fighters out there, especially at world level, that's where you can get found out. Do you think we found that out against Azeez Jr.? His power just wasn't there against Virgil. It seems he couldn't even break him down with a jab, let alone anything more, could he?
Yeah, like I don't think his boxing IQ is at world level to any means at this point. Like I know he can build on that, but at his age, is there much improvement he can actually build upon?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Like you say, this fight will be an indication of what direction he's heading in. His opponent Mbenge is 20-2. He's a previous holder of this IBO world title, but that was back between 2018 and 2019. The 2 losses on his record have come when he's fought outside South Africa in the past. And this is his only his third time, fighting outside of South Africa. Is it fair enough to say it looks like his record is a bit of a home track bully, and when he's asked to travel on the road, he doesn't seem to have the same desire about him?
Like he seems to have a good knockout record, like ratio, 15 KOs out of 20 wins. But saying that, like the guys he has knocked out, how good are they?
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Obviously, he's clearly got a pop to his punch. 20 wins, 15 of those inside the distance. It's obvious to me, anyway, from having a look at him, that his game plan is going to be front foot, forward pressure, looking to catch McKinson cold. In all honesty, I think he's probably aware that if it becomes a boxing match, he's likely to come up short, isn't he? Just one more question for you on this fight, mate. I mean, it's a fringe world title. So McKinson wins this fight on Saturday. I think it's fair enough to say he's still a bit away from challenging the likes of Girona, Ennis, etc. at 147. Is that something you'd agree with, or would you expect him then to straight away move towards those fights?
No, I think he still has to kind of build his way up. I think another couple of fights before he steps up another level.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll go for a prediction, mate. I'll start with yourself. Your prediction for this fight?
I think McKinson's gonna win. I think it's going to be a points decision. I don't think he's going to get caught. But with the heavy hands of Mbenge, it possibly could happen. But I think he's just going to outbox him and outclass him.
Yeah, no, completely in agreement. I think it'll be McKinson on points. He'll have a few hairy moments. I reckon he'll get clipped a few times, but I think his boxing IQ that he seems to always find a way to win tough fights, similar to what he done against Chris Congo back in 21. I think he'll come for on points and be, for what it's worth, the IBO world champion at middleweight. I'm sorry, at welterweight, not at middleweight. Sorry, welterweight. So we'll move on to another fight at the Copper Box card. An intriguing fight for me. It's Azeez against Lewis Edmondson, and we found out last week that the vacant British light heavyweight title, that of course has been vacated by Joshua Buatsi, on the line for this. So fantastic to see there's a belt on offer for this fight. It's Azeez's third outing of the year. He's had, if we're being kind and indifferent, 2024. Obviously, came up short against Buatsi in February in a cracking fight at Wembley Arena. And then his comeback fight, which he was expected to sort of use as a stepping stone, ended up being a draw across 8 rounds back in June. So the first question is here, with him now being 35 years of age, how much has this year taken out of him, both physically and in terms of his desire to carry on boxing?
I think the Buatsi fight took a hell of a lot out of him. I think he was lucky that he didn't even get knocked out in that last round, to be honest. I think Azeez was being fairly generous and not stepping on the gas and putting him to sleep in that last round, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a fair reflection. I was at that fight, and yeah, Buatsi just looked like he was holding back a little bit at the end of the fight, as opposed to maybe looking for a finish and the killer instincts we expected. A bit more on Azeez. Obviously, he's a former British champion, so he beat Shaquille Pitters for this belt back in 2020, I believe it was. Defended it once against Rocky Fielding, and then vacated it to move on for European honours, which of course he won out in Paris at the back end of 2021. He sort of had that amazing year in 2021. I suppose the question is, we've seen that he's definitely above domestic level. We've seen he's possibly fringe world level. Obviously, the Buatsi fight was disappointing for him. Does he still have that belief that he can get that close to that level again? Or even the big domestic fights out there, you think if he picks up this belt, there's Willie Hutchinson, there's Ben Whittaker. Okay, after the weekend, maybe not so much. There's Anthony Yard out there for him. There are domestic names there. Do we reckon he believes he can get close to them?
Oh, he definitely does. Like, I believe that every fighter is the last one to know when it's their time to give it up. You know, I think he still always will have that belief in him. But I know there, even someone like Liam Cameron that we seen over the weekend, that'd be a tough fight for him at this stage after his last performance, I think.
Yeah, no, completely agree, mate. So we'll move on to his opponent, George Edmondson, who, of course, this is his big step up. It was a big step getting the fight against Dan Azeez. Now he's got himself a British title opportunity on the line. He's 9-0 with 3 KOs. It's a massive step up in class for Edmondson. It's his first scheduled 10-rounder. Suppose the obvious thing to think here is, with it only being his 10th fight, with it being his first scheduled 12-rounder, he's only done 8-rounders before. He hasn't had any 10-rounders as far as I can see on his record. It sounds like an opportunity too soon for Edmondson, doesn't it?
Yeah, I haven't heard much of him before this was announced even. And looking at his record, he's not he doesn't seem to be a devastating puncher. So I find it hard to believe that he'll be able to outbox Azeez in this fight.
Yeah, it's a fair reflection. I think for me, if Azeez is having any doubts within himself, if he's not got that same hunger that he had when he was on his run prior to the Joshua Buatsi fight, then a young, hungry fighter in Edmondson who's looking to make a statement on a boxer card on Sky Sports as well could be there to take advantage of him. I'm just questioning whether or not it's the right time in his career. If maybe he was 12, 13-0 and he'd had a few more 10-rounders at maybe English, British level against fringe contenders, I think he'd maybe be set up better for this fight. But in terms of how I think this fight's going, I agree with you. I just think Azeez is still going to have something there. He knows, maybe not on a world level, but you can see some of the domestic fights that can be made for him, either within the boxer stable or as part of Riyadh season on co-pros, etc., etc. So I believe it will be 12 rounds. I just think Azeez is going to take a few rounds to find his timing, but I think he'll come through this fight via unanimous decisions, become a 2-time British champion. How about yourself, Jack?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think this is going to be a kind of kick up the hole for himself. And, he's going to have to put on a good performance to show everyone the last one was a bit of a fluke.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm that 8-rounder. I suppose it's subjective, isn't it? Whenever you only have a judge scoring a fight, a referee scoring a fight is very subjective. And that's what he had at Selhurst Park. Maybe the referee was only seeing it one way because he's right on top of the action. Perhaps if it was the judges, he may have scraped through with a, close enough decision if it was with judges there. I suppose we'll never know, but be interesting to see what Dan can do Saturday night. We'll move away from the copper box now for our next couple of fights, and we'll find ourselves in Germany for the vacant IBF super middleweight world title being contested between William Scull, a Cuban native who boxes out of Germany, and Vladimir Shishkin, who is a Russian fighter, but of course he's saying he's fighting out of America due to all the political issues within Russia at the moment, which we'll skirt past on a boxing show such as ourselves. Looking at Scull to start with, he's 22-0 at the moment with 9 KOs. He's the WBO number one. Sorry, not the WBO. He's the IBF number one fighter, so he's obviously mandated for this vacant title. You can see what they were trying to do with him in his earlier outing this year. They put him on the Canelo Munguia on the cards. Obviously, he was already the IBF number one, so they gave him an 8-rounder on that, probably to try and entice Canelo to take the fight. Of course, Canelo hasn't taken the fight, so we're in this position for a vacant title. Out of what you've seen from William Scull so far, what do you make of him?
I'm not very impressed by him at all. Like, when I heard that there was even a possibility of Canelo fighting him, I was just shaking the head mostly. You know, it seems like if he does become world champion, it's going to be a fairly handy chance for any upcoming fighter that has a bit of fight in them to take it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's an interesting one. So looking through his record, he's held the IBF Intercontinental, the IBF International, and one other, I think it was a WBO International belt. So he's been carefully maneuvered around, shall we say. He's always fought in Germany. His trip to America last time out was his first time outside of Germany, obviously looking to bait Canelo into a fight, which, hey, you can never begrudge a fighter looking to make that Canelo payday. You've got to do what you got to do, absolutely. So he's been carefully maneuvered into this position. But one thing I will say in comparison to Shishkin, he has mixed it at a higher level. And that may make a difference in this fight. Look, Shishkin himself is 16-0. He's 10 KOs. He's your typical Russian fighter. He's got hands of stone. He likes to make a statement. But what I've seen from him is he does like, if he needs to have a boxing match with you and wear you down, he can do that. He doesn't just have to ice you in a couple of rounds. He can go late into fights if he needs to. And I think he'll need to in this fight, don't you, Jack?
Yeah, like, the only thing that I worry about with Shishkin is he's only been in one other 12-round fight. So, you know, will he be able to perform at that level for as long as as the fight goes? You know, like, two of them are going to have to put on a high performance. And I think it's whoever's able to keep up the level for longer.
Yeah, I think Shishkin's gas tank is something that possibly could be tested in this fight. Obviously, Scull has done a lot more 10 and 12 rounders after the last few years. So I know all fighters train for 10 and 12 rounds in the gym beyond that, but it's different doing it under the lights on a fight night. I suppose the question to ask here, whoever wins this fight, which we'll come to in a minute, Canelo, look, he's done the whole undisputed at 168. We know he's more about money and preserving his legacy than fights now. Is Canelo going to come up knocking for either of these fighters, do you think?
I don't think so, honestly. I think this fight I don't think it really garners any attention for him. You know, I don't think it'd be a big money fight, even with his name on it. I don't think anyone would really care. You know, when he last fought people like Charlo, Berlanga, all them, you know, they at least had a bit of a following, whereas, like, let's say if it's Shishkin or Scull, I don't think they have a big enough fan base, you know, behind them to push for it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think this is very much a trade, even though it's a world title fight, it's very much a trade world title fight. People like ourselves that know a lot about boxing sort of spend our time looking through fights that are going on in Eastern Europe and something like that. That's what this fight's about. I do think Caleb Plant is probably a likely contender for the winner next. I think he wants a world title back and he has a good relationship with the IBF after being their champion in the past. We'll get a prediction for this fight, mate. I'll come to you first.
I'm going to have to favour Shishkin, honestly. I think that more Russian style, you know, I think he's going to have a bit more heart and grit in him, and he's going to put on the performance on the night.
You going for stoppage or points?
I'm going for a points decision.
Points decision. Okay, I'm going to go the other way to you. I'm just thinking William Sculls. He hasn't impressed me, but you can't deny he's mixed it at a better level. He's done more 10, 12 rounds. I just think that experience is going to edge him to fight. I think it possibly a split decision, but I'm going to favour William Sculls to become the new IBF super middleweight world champion on Saturday night. So that is out in Germany. No UK broadcaster confirmed for that yet. If anything does get announced, I'll make sure to put something up my socials for anyone that does have any interest in, if we're honest, what is becoming the future at 168. The Canelo era is tailing off. It's nearing the end. These guys are the next generation coming through that are going to carry the 168-pound division. So we will move down to super welterweight, 154 pounds, and we'll move to Florida in America. Anyone out in America, they're selling tickets for $1 for this fight. It will cost you more to get to the arena than it will do to fight. This came out last night, Jack. I'm not sure if you've seen it.
No, I didn't, honestly.
It is Bakhram Murtazaliev against Tszyu for the IBF super welterweight world title. Firstly, Tszyu, absolutely one of my favourite boxers on the circuit at the moment. Absolutely love him. Great to see that he's back in with a world title opportunity after his last fight. But we'll park him for a second. We'll talk about Murtazaliev first. He is 22-0. He is another Russian national. You may be unsurprised to hear from his name, but he is fighting out of Florida in America, again, for the same reasons we discussed with Shishkin. It's the first defense of his world title that he won in emphatic style with a KO earlier this year. But despite his unbeaten records and the fact he has a large amount of KOs, would you have Murtazaliev as an underdog in this fight?
I'd have to give it, like, I think Tszyu has just fought at a higher level, to be honest. I think he's coming in the favourite. I think, like, out of both of them, they both have a fairly similar style, but I think Tszyu is a lot better at putting it on people at the higher level.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you. Murtazaliev obviously got himself into the position to fight for a vacant title. Of course, this division is finally moving again after Jamal Charlo was allowed to hold on to all the belts for close to 2 years without fighting for, reasons we believe to be associated with his mental health. So first and foremost, mental health comes first. As long as he's getting the help he needs, that's fair enough. But the governing bodies, they took a bit too long to get the division moving again. So it's good that we're finally there. Talking about Tszyu, he's 24-1, 17 of the victories by knockout. And as we said, this is his first fight since losing. It was a contentious split decision. I mean, how that fight went 12 rounds in March with the cuts he had still baffles me. I was looking back at that fight today. How the doctor allowed him to go 12 rounds first of all is baffling. So it's good to see him back in a world title fight. Former WBO world champion. He got 2 defenses of the WBO belt after being their interim champion for another 3 or 4 fights, I think it was, again, because of the Charlo situation. How highly do you rate him, Tszyu?
I rate him very highly. I think, honestly, his last fight against Fundora, I think, like, the cut really affected him that night, and I don't think any fighter would be expected to perform at that level with that severe of a cut. I was surprised as well that it went that long and the ref didn't call it off, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it was a horror cut. It happened so early in the fight. I think near the beginning of the fight, I thought the ref's just going to let this go till it's past 4 rounds. We can go to the scorecard. So we, potentially avoid the dreaded no contest situation, but he just kept letting it go. The doctor kept looking. The doctor kept allowing the fight to go. And don't get me wrong, Tszyu was in a fight, and of course he says he was impeded by loss of vision from the blood, etc. But he gave it a good go, and there is an argument. I think I had to fight a draw, if I'm being honest, but there is an argument that Tim done enough to hold on to his world titles in that fight. So again, could be going into this fight as the WBO, WBC looking to claim the IBF, but of course we're here with him looking to become a 2-time world champion. I think his style is handmade to look good against Murtazaliev. Again, they both come forward. They're both aggressive, but Tim can box as well. He can look cute when he needs to. He can box on the back foot and make an opponent miss, which is similar to what he done with Jeff Horn, if you remember back in 2020. He absorbed all of Jeff Horn's pressure on him, and then when Jeff was missing and tired, he picks him apart. And I can see something similar happening in this fight on Saturday night. I'm not sure if you share those views at all, Jack, or see something different.
I completely agree, honestly. I think there's just levels in this game, and I think Tszyu was just above, like a good bit above Murtazaliev. Sorry, I'm shocking at pronouncing the names.
I've spent quite a bit of time today listening to how to say his name, so I've got it nailed down now. Be like Beetlejuice, say it 3 times and it goes in.
But I think even his past fight against Fundora, I think that was a fairly tough fight going into it, even because it was short notice, wasn't it? It was a late replacement.
Yeah, I believe Fundora was a late replacement, but regardless of that, he's 6'6". He's got such long levers. Tszyu's 5'7", 5'8". So it was always going to be an incredibly difficult night, regardless of what ended up happening in that fight.
I think I think there's levels to the game, and I think Tim is just a good few levels above. And I think it'll be a very decent fight, but I think he'll get him out of there early enough. I think maybe 5 to 7 rounds. I think he'll have him out of there.
So you're going for Tszyu stoppage between 5 and 7?
Yeah.
For myself, I agree. I think he's going to have to absorb a lot of pressure. Bakhram only knows one way to fight. He only knows to come forward and be aggressive, and that could be to his detriment in this fight. As we said, Tim is a fantastic pot shotter. He's good at absorbing pressure and then coming on strong. And whilst I think he'll have a few hairy moments, he's going to get a stoppage. I'm going to say later in the fight, between rounds 8 to 10, and he'll become the IBF champion and the 2-time champion of the world, which is no mean way to end this year after obviously the devastation of losing his world titles back in March. So looking forward to that fight. That fight is free. It's not a pay-per-view. It is free with your Amazon Prime subscription, not just in America, but in the UK as well. So if you've got Amazon Prime and you're looking for a fight to watch either Sunday morning or staying up late into the early hours of Sunday, then absolutely get on that. It's part of your Amazon subscription, which is fantastic to hear. All that's left to do, mate, is to head back to London. So we've flown across to Germany, we've flown across to America, and now we're coming back to Blighty. We're at the main event at the Copper Box. It is Azim and Ohara Davies. Azim, 11-0, 8 KOs, former European champion, youngest ever European champion, against Mr. Controversial himself, Two Tanks Ohara Davies, 25-3, coming off the back of a demoralizing first round stoppage to the evergreen Ishmael Barossa back in January this year. I suppose my first question is, Azim's got a point to prove on Saturday, doesn't he?
Definitely.
He defeated Enoch Paulson in February on the Buatsi Azeez card. On the same night as the first Wardley and Fraser Clark fight, he faced off with Harlan Eubank in the ring. That fight never happened due to injury. But then the day after, he vacated his European title 10 minutes before purse bids with Dalton Smith. So look, you can understand the rhetoric I'm going down here, but he needs to make a statement Saturday night, doesn't he?
Oh, definitely. I'm going to be honest, I haven't been very impressed in his last couple of bouts. I'm not a big fan of his style, to be honest. I was like on the hype train from very early, like when he got announced as a boxer or fighter and all that. But recently, his performances seem to be a bit lackluster, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he was blasting everyone out early. He obviously got handed the opportunity to win a European title early. No fight is ever going to turn down that opportunity. Yeah. But I think true colours are being shown by the way he's been manoeuvred away, we'll say, by Ben Shalom from Dalton Smith at the current time. We're not going to say he's ducked, despite what we may think. We're going to say he's been manoeuvred in a different direction. I think that's the best way to look at it. Obviously, coming off the back of the injury and hand surgery, I believe it was that he's had, they've matched him up with Ohara Davies. Could be a mistake, couldn't it? I mean, you look at, okay, Ohara Davies has lost 3 fights, but he's lost to Josh Taylor, a former undisputed world champion. He's lost to Jack Catterall, who should have been an undisputed world champion. And he's lost to Ishmael Barossa, who there's no shame in losing to Barossa, because if Barossa hits you, you stay hit. So could Azim and Boxer be biting off a bit more than they could chew here with Ohara on Saturday night?
Yeah, I think this is a risky fight, like for your first fight back after our surgery. I know Davis is after coming off of a fairly dominating loss, like a first round knockout. But at the same time, like, he has the experience, like 32 years old, like 18 knockouts. You know, he is dangerous. Like, if it I don't think we've seen Azim's chin be tested properly, and I think this fight he could be chin checked.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Ohara chin tests as Azim at some point in this fight. I think if they picked Ohara Davies thinking he may be over the hill, thinking that the Barossa loss was the sign of decline, then could be a rude awakening. Look, we know Ohara Davies, he's still playing on getting thrown under the bus by Eddie Hearn back 6-7 years ago, and how that's the reason that his career is slightly derailed. Regardless of our thoughts, he's controversial at times, Ohara, but he can also fight. He's beaten Tyrone McKenna. He's beaten other fighters of a decent enough standards. I'm not saying he's world level yet, but the argument is that Adam Azim isn't even world level yet. So it could be a very good fight. But the question is, two questions here. First one is Ohara Davies looking for one last payday, or do you believe he has something more left in the tank than just one last payday here?
I think he has more in the tank, to be honest. Like, I don't think one first round knockout is going to define his whole career. You know, like, he has stepped it up levels and he has lost, but at the same time, like, 32 years old, like, I still think he has a couple of years left to prove himself, and, you know, this could be a good stepping stone for him.
Yeah, completely agree. I don't think he's over the hill at all. I don't think he's looking for one last payday at all. And even if he loses this fight, if he's competitive in the fight, there'll be plenty of people that will want this name of Ohara Davies on their record as they're making their progression in their career. So my last question before we get a prediction: if Adam Azim comes through on Saturday night, it has to be Dalton Smith next, doesn't it? He can't. Dalton Smith, assuming he wins the European title, with that being rearranged probably for the start of next year, they have to get it on, don't they? Next year, they can't. Azim can't be seen to keep ducking this fight.
It has to happen, but I still believe it's not going to happen. I think he's going to try to go down the route again of Harlem Eubank. To be honest, I think that's a better suited fight for himself, and I think they're definitely going to be pushing for that instead.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't be surprised at all if that is the path they go down. But with Ben now being involved a bit more in the Riyadh season picture, I think Turkey's not going to allow the fact that it's a matchroom and boxer fighters, so they can't fight each other being an excuse. We've seen he doesn't give a crap about the cross lines between promoters. If he wants to make the fight, I'm sure he'll make it. And if Adam Azim knows what's good for his career with the way boxing's going at the moment, he's not really in a position to say no to Turkey, is he? If Turkey comes knocking, he's got to go there. Otherwise, he's going to find himself alienated at a time where he can't really afford to be.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I don't think anyone's going to pass up an opportunity to fight on even if it's a non-pay-per-view Riyadh season card. You know, like, it's still Riyadh. You know.
Yeah, Turkey comes knocking, and you bite his hand off unless you're, of course, Inoue or Canelo. Really seems to be the only two fighters in boxing that are able to stay away from that for the time being. So we get a prediction for you. The main event Saturday night at the Copper Box. How do you see it going down, my friends?
I think it's going to be an upset, to be honest. I think Adam Azim is going to have a reality check after this fight. I think it's going to be a points win for Ohara Davies, and I think he's going to push the pace on Azim, and I think there's going to be a possible even knockdown in between. I think with his heavy hands, he's definitely going to check Adam Azim and, you know, push the paces on him.
So you're going Ohara Davies on points, not stoppage. You're going points.
Points.
Yeah. Mate, I mean, I can see an upset in this fight. There's a path to victory for Ohara Davies. If he fights similar to when he took on Lewis Ritson in Newcastle before the Barossa fight, he was an underdog then, wasn't he? He put the pressure on Ritson and then he wore him down and got a stoppage. But I just think, look, Adam Azim has a lot to prove. He is a special talent. He's still young. I just think it might be work rate in this fight. Ohara Davies has never had the highest work rate for a 12-round fight. When he's lost, it's been because his gas tank has let him down, if we're being honest, against Catterall and Taylor. It wasn't his output. It wasn't his skill in endeavour, his gas tank. He just wasn't there for the whole 12 rounds. And I think that's going to be a factor again on Saturday night. He's going to start fast. He's going to stick it on Azim. But if he doesn't have Azim out of there after rounds 4 or 5, then what's he going to have left? And I think Azim may be behind on the scorecards at the halfway point. It may be close. I'm sure Ohara and his team will be calling a robbery, and, you know, it's a fixed decision at the end. But I do think Adam Azim by unanimous decision for this main event at the Copper Box.
Fair enough.
It's a great fight. It's absolutely, you know.
Definitely. Yeah.
And one thing we can agree on, that if Adam Azim blows Ohara Davies out of there within 1-2 rounds, then fair dues, because it's not what anyone thinks is going to happen that actually knows anything about these two fighters. But there we go, guys. Another week down. That is a bit of a mismatch week. Obviously, after all eyes being on Riyadh this weekend, there's a bit of moving around both on providers and across the globe for your eyeballs. Before we go, Jack, can you let everyone know that's watching your handle on X so they can give you a follow if they're not already?
Yeah, so it's Absolute Boxing on every social media, Instagram, X and YouTube. So if you want to check out some boxing breakdown videos, go check it out. That's about it.
Yeah, guys, if you're not following Jack, make sure you give him a follow and subscribe on all his platforms. Excellent videos coming out, excellent content, and I'm sure there is a lot more to come from him to close out 2024. As for myself, as you can see on the screen, my X handle is at Liam_Tully9. The push for 500 followers is making a move. Would love to get there, as I said, by the end of this year. And as I say, as always, thank you very much for everyone that interacts with the show, be it comment, like on YouTube, retweet it on social media. It all means a lot to me. Thank you for watching again this week. Let us know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you again soon.
Stay talk.